Hello, everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of the second attempt to adopt Stephen King's 1982 novel, The Running Man. This film is directed by Edgar Wright. It stars Glen Powell, Josh Brolin, Colman Domingo, and a slew of other actors. And the film tells the story of a man that joins a game show in which contestants, allowed to go anywhere in the world, are pursued by hunters hired to kill them. This is, as mentioned, the adaptation of the Stephen King novel and remake, reboot, reimagining of the 1987 film that starred Arnold Schwarzenegger. This film, it was kind of high on my anticipation list, and it didn't get that way until maybe a month before the release. But I was a little skeptical for a number of reasons. Going into this, I am a fan of Edgar Wright. I am a huge fan of Scott Pilgrim versus the World, one of my favorite movies. Just from a technical standpoint and the storytelling standpoint, I love Scott Pilgrim versus the World, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Baby Driver. I am a huge Edgar Wright fan. And so with all of that being said, I was kind of skeptical about him directing this film. you know, I've seen him direct action. I've named a few movies. I mean, Baby Driver, Hot Fuzz, movies of that ilk. There's action in it. Yeah, there are comedies, but there's action in it. Is crime in it, So it's not super far-fetched, but this just didn't feel like an Edgar Wright property, something that he would dive into. But I was willing to give it a chance. And then you have Glen Powell, who I'm becoming a huge fan of. I've always liked him in everything that he's in, but as far as being a lead, I'm becoming like a Glen Powell guy. Loved Chad Powers. Chad Powers on Hulu is hilarious. I like his style. He did a film last year, I think Hitman, where he played multiple characters and stuff like that. And that seems to be his niche because he does that in this film too, but he does it well. He's a real good actor, and I always wanted to see him in an action film, and I felt like this probably was a good choice for him going into it, but could he lead a action film? So it was a lot on the table there, but I got excited leading up to it, and right before the release of this film, that excitement kind of left. And that's without me looking at reviews or anything like that. It just left. And normally when that happens, it's not a good sign. And sure enough, this was a very disappointing film. I'm sad to report that this was bad. I'm not gonna say it's one of the worst movies of the year, but I don't know, man. It's definitely the most disappointing, or one of the most disappointing films of the year. It's all over the place. This movie has elements. Don't get me wrong. There are pieces of this movie that are good. The action in this film is really good. I really did like the action sequences that were put together by Edgar Wright and his team. Really good. I had fun with that. Colman Domingo is a national treasure. He needs to be preserved and protected at all costs. He is amazing in this film, a standout, stole the movie. The best performance in the movie. He understood the assignment. He's the only one who got it. He knew what movie he was in, and he played it to a T. Every second he was on screen, I was completely invested. Loved him in this movie. That's pretty much it for me. There's nothing else about this movie that made me want to scream from the heavens that this is the definitive adaptation of The Running Man. I would right now. I don't even have to sit and think and meditate for weeks and days or whatever. I can say with my whole chest that the 1987 film is leaps and bounds better than this movie. And that is the cheesiest 80s action movie of all time. At least one of them, top 5 cheesy action movies from the 80s. But I would sit back. I was more invested in those characters. Every character in that film, Arnold Schwarzenegger and the supporting cast. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I was into those characters. Here in this film, I couldn't get behind anybody. Our hero, Glen Powell, who for moments in the film I enjoyed, but at no moment in the film, as far as the character, did I root for him. At no point did I feel like, okay, this is the hero. He's the guy. I didn't feel that, It was nothing for me to get behind him for. Yeah, he's doing this for his family, but it's like, okay, it's and that gets lost throughout the movie. You really don't feel the weight of that. They didn't take the time to set that up properly, and it's weird to say that because this movie is over 2 hours. It's about 2 hours and 15 minutes, and they could have easily shaved off 20 minutes of this movie, and it probably would have been a little better. And it's weird that this movie lasted this long and didn't really establish nothing. It was nothing established here, especially with our main character. I could forgive everything else that I have my little, problems with if the main character worked, but it didn't work. And it's not Glen Powell's fault. He actually did the best he could. It's just his character wasn't written right. He was all over the place. He was the sympathetic hero or he was a douchebag. It's nothing about him that cheered protagonists, throughout the entire film. It just didn't get there. Our lead villain here, Josh Brolin, he was wasted. Josh Brolin is a beast, and we know he can play a villain. Thanos, hello. I mean, we know he can play a villain. We know that he is an excellent actor. Wasted. Everybody else is wasted. I mean, the whole cast, and this is a stellar cast that they have put together for this film, and they were wasted. I don't know, man. Speaking of wasted, this story was a wasted opportunity to tell a actual topical story, a poignant story. I mean, the whole concept of Running Man, it is prime for this day and age, to tell a story about watching TV and our addiction to technology, and trash TV and stuff like that. That's right there. It's right there in front of us. And they wasted it. They wasted a perfect opportunity to tell an interesting story. Now, the story didn't have to go like I thought it should have went, but the story that I came up with in my head is better than the one that they put on screen. And that's where I'm like, man, what are they doing? Look, there is a lot of action in here. I'm not going to take that away. There's a lot of action in this movie. But and me being an action movie nut, I was raised on action movies. I love them. I don't care what kind of action movie it is. I will watch it. I don't care if it was direct to video, VOD as it's called today, or whatever. A basement, clearance bin. I would get it because it's an action movie. I just love action movies. It's rare for me to sit down in an action movie and get bored with the action. I was bored, even though the action sequences were, like I said, well put together. They were nice. Some unique little situations that Ben Richards have to go through. But I was bored. It was like action sequence, a scene in the middle, the kind of catch your breath action sequence. Scene in the middle, catch your breath action sequence. It was just too much. It was too much. This had more action than the 1987 film, and that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot. Another thing, and I hate to compare it to the 1987 film, but it's based off of the same material, so I have no other choice. The 1987 film, the Arnold Schwarzenegger film, along with him being well established and the supporting cast, the villains were well established. Killian, you felt his villainy, throughout the film. And so you knew he was the villain. The hunters in that movie, they were all kind of comic book villains, the way they were set up in that particular film, but they had a story. They had a backstory of sorts, that you can kind of get behind. That not get behind like cheer for them, but you can feel them. You can believe their characters. Not in this movie. The villains were just goons. They were just goons. The hunters had nothing. There was no substance. Zero substance. I guess I'm hurt. I'm hurt by this movie, and I wasn't expecting the world. I wasn't expecting the next evolution into action movies. I wasn't expecting that, but I was at least expecting to be entertained, and I was bored to death. I was bored to death with the movie, and the story went absolutely nowhere, and the performances. I thought, man, that was another thing. You have this caliber of actors and actresses in this movie, and they couldn't elevate it. Oh. Yeah, this is one of the most disappointing films of 2025, unfortunately. Which means The Running Man gets a letter grade of a D+. Yeah, crash and burn, man. The only running that should happen involving this film is a raid from the theater, man. I am so hurt. I'm disappointed, man. Like I said, Edgar Wright. But I should have known. I should have just listened to the voice in my head when they first announced that Edgar Wright was going to direct this film. I should have just followed my first mind. No, not stupid me. I went on ahead and said, oh, no, it'll still be good. Nah. Hurtful, man. Hurtful. But that's just one man's opinion. I would love to know your thoughts on The Running Man. Did you check it out? And which one did you like better? Did you like Arnold Schwarzenegger's version or this version of it? And speaking of which, it was a nice little cameo by Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you blink and you miss it. If you blink and you miss it. That's the only thing they gave it the D+, by the way. Or at least one of the things. They gave it a D+. Otherwise, it would have been an F. But did you catch that? Did you catch the movie? I would like to know your thoughts. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of The Running Man. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.